Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thrive, Not Just Survive. I'm your host, Nasira Jamal, and I am so grateful that you all have joined me throughout this journey. As you all know, I began this interview, this podcast, live cast, whatever you want to call it, when COVID started. And the purpose of it was to bring to my social feed positivity. As you all know, I'm a big proponent of learning about the law of attraction and teaching it and keeping the vibration up. And the first thing that I realized when COVID-19 hit was that everybody's feeds were filled with negativity, with numbers, with all of the stuff that was bringing people down. Now, I'm not saying at all that we don't need to know the information to be safe, to make sure we're following precautions. But the whole thing for me is not to focus on the stuff that brings my vibration down, or there's a negative component to it, which can actually lead you or your brain or your mind towards something that's highly negative, which will bring on more things with the same vibration. So that is all part of the energy stuff that I've talked about over the months that I've been doing this live cast. Today's guest, I am so blessed and thrilled to bring her on because one, she's a medical professional and specializes in a holistic technique that she's going to walk us through and talk us to about in terms of holistically, how do you treat the whole person? And her name is Melinda. Sorry, I want to call her Melanie, but it's Melinda Toney, and she is from the United States, North Carolina. I'm going to bring her on so we can start this conversation because she's going to walk us through what this means in terms of dealing with the whole person. And she's very, very intelligent and very ready to share this information because I believe that in this time of crisis, there are more people needing this level of intuition and this level of care. So let me bring her on so we can get this conversation started. Hi, Melinda. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
It's wonderful to be with you, Nasira, and your people. Deep breath.
Thank you. So before we begin, I want you to walk us through your journey, sort of where you started and how you landed doing what you're doing now, which is very interesting to me. Well, you know that. I also have done some energy healing certifications and understand the concept of it all. But I really want to understand what you do and how you can help your how you help your clients achieve what they want to achieve. So walk us through your journey a little bit.
Yes. So I entered the field of medicine because I really, really wanted to offer something very palpable that people acknowledged and needed practically to heal themselves and to live a better life. However, once I jumped into medical school, those ideals of mine started to crumble because what I perceived was that all of a sudden the heroes were not the people we were serving. The heroes were the silver bullets. The silver bullets, be it the right doctor, the smart doctor, or the perfect medication, or the perfect surgical procedure, something outside of them. And it just didn't sit right with me at that time as a young student. But of course, having been educated in the South in the late 70s and 80s, there was nothing I could say.
Right.
And so when I began my practice in Pennsylvania, before I began my practice in Pennsylvania, I really wondered about whether or not I was in the right field. And I did make myself a promise that if I was going to stay in medicine and if it was going to be worth my while, that I would engage with the people I serve in a holistic way. That is, to see them body, mind, and spirit, and see them interconnected with their families, with their communities, because all of that has a bearing on the person's health. So for a while, I thought that as long as I compassionately offered my tools of conventional medicine, that everything would be okay. But after about 7 years or so, I realized that many of the tools that I was offering actually did not empower them.
Hmm.
And that just broke my heart, and I had to stick my neck out outside of the box to find other tools of medicine, of healing. And the most exciting part that I found, most exciting tools to me, were the bioenergetic tools, because bioenergy works on body, mind, and spirit, and the mental being informs those parts. And so I was in Pennsylvania as a holistic family doctor, part of the system, went to 2 hospitals, did rounds in 2 hospitals. But in about 2003, I started a side practice, which I called Chrysalis. And that chrysalis, for those of you who may not know the term, chrysalis is the process between the cocoon and the time that the butterfly emerges.
Mhm.
And as one who is so into seeing the positive side of things, I just insisted that I wanted to engage with people in a way that perceived their emergence, that no matter how bad things looked, that there is always life is inviting us to something better, even at the last hour of life. Because I've done a lot of work with hospice. I was medical director of hospice for 12 years. And so there is always something amazing, even more amazing, about to emerge. And it's really important to focus on this emergence and not thwart it with
Right.
whatever we do. So I sold my conventional practice 7 years ago to the hospital locally, and my husband and I relocated because we ourselves had created a kind of world that was draining us, quite frankly. And so we moved to Asheville, North Carolina, and started over again, but continued to grow the chrysalis practice, which I now call Awaken Chrysalis. And I do see people in various states as well as other countries.
That's amazing. So it's like, is it something that you created, like it's your own version of using bioenergy, or is this something that you were certified in?
Yes, so it's just, of course, I, as a physician, I still can prescribe medications, but people come to me usually to get off medications in a wholesome way.
Right.
Yes, and yes, I have done a lot of studying to become knowledgeable and certified in various disciplines and various modalities.
So what does this mean? Like for somebody that is dealing with, especially right now, I think with COVID-19, there's a lot of people going through emotional trauma and not realizing sort of where they're at, who they are. And there's a lot of things coming up to the surface. Maybe not for a lot of people a physical symptom, but other symptoms that are showing up. And so how would you say that the chrysalis methodology or the type of healing, how do you help somebody through that?
That's a great question, Sarah. Thank you for that. So let's back off a little bit. Chrysalis is actually an approach.
Okay.
It's an approach, a perception that something good comes out of even the worst looking things, right?
Okay.
So that mindset is super important to not to avoid or abstain from the temptation of just assuming that things are starting to spiral down and, it's the beginning of the end.
Right.
That's very important. And so I like to, first of all, I think it's really important during these times of COVID, many, many emotions are coming up. And with a lockdown, we are forced we are forced to really acknowledge our emotions. And I would just like to invite people to acknowledge the emotions and see the emotions for what they are: energy in motion. All the whole range of emotions are reasonable. They all are part of the human experience. So it's important to acknowledge them and know that it's important to move them, to keep moving. The problem with emotions is, for most of us, is when they get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
We are hit by traumas from the past. They often get stuck. They don't move. And when they don't move, they settle in our cells and create all kinds of physiologic and sometimes structural problems. So number one is to acknowledge our emotions, honor them, and find ways to keep them moving. Be it physical motion, be it talking, but try, sometimes when we talk about our emotions, they keep us cemented in the same stuckness. So it's really important to keep moving forward and realizing when we start to feel too comfortable with
Right.
the same emotion over and over again. Secondly, it's really important these days to take extra good care of yourself, physically as well as emotionally. Eating well. Most of us are not able to go out and eat a lot of and junk food restaurants. So just to become curious about, how do I nourish my body in a truly wholesome and loving way, rather than using food to dam down our feelings, which I know I've caught myself doing at times as well. So learning how to nourish yourself, learning how to listen to what your body needs, to what you really need. And during this quiet and lockdown time, this is a wonderful opportunity to listen to the movements within our being.
So there are messages in there. Like, I believe that, as we've been given this total time to reset, it's giving us the opportunity to tune in, right? It's to go inward and become more familiarizing ourselves with who and what we really are and what really makes us move. Like you say, keep that moving. But it's about connecting with who we are, right? As a whole person. Because I think before this, when we were all caught up in the rat race of life, you kind of came away with just living externally, meaning everything outside of us was driving us, right? But now we're forced into this kind of reflective work and containing that relationship with self, or exploring that relationship. So I'm really interested in this chrysalis approach that you talk about, and how would that work for somebody, like the whole, obviously we can't go through the whole process or anything like that, but just if you can give us an insight on how this could move somebody from point A to point B.
Certainly. So I would like to share a little case study, of this woman in her early 70s who saw me at the end of last year, 2019. She came to me with severe, intense jaw pain, which kept her awake most of the night, kept her from sleeping. Her jaw pain was actually from osteonecrosis, which is basically the deadening of the bone in her jaw, which had been caused by a medication which was given along with her chemotherapy for several years. And this jaw pain really got in the way. This woman, and let's call her Mary, it's not her real name. This woman, Mary, came to me because she was really at the end of her rope. She couldn't sleep. And you and I know what it's like when we don't get enough sleep. The world looks totally different. But she was desperate. And this, being a very sociable person, she could barely even get out of her bed. It was so bad. She couldn't get out of the house. And so this made her very withdrawn, very isolated. And fortunately, we started working before the lockdown, which was the end of 2019. And so the very first thing we do at the first visit is that I listen very deeply and behold Mary in her wholeness, of course, acknowledging her brokenness, but also visualizing and connecting with the wholeness that is emerging at this very desperate time. Because she did say later on that she felt like life was no longer worth living.
Oh boy.
She was really at the end of her rope. She had also gone through a lot of losses, and a lot of traumas, losing many loved ones, especially more recently her beloved. And so as I listened deeply and looked at her life force, now I see, when I listen deeply, I focus on that part of her that is working, which I call the life force, or the healing force. And every single thing in creation, including the microbes, have a living force that keeps it living. And this living force, life force, works for us 24/7 to survive. And so the good news is, all of us who are watching this this conversation have that life force. And I would say, I call it, it's from the ground up. Okay. And I focus on that because it's the piece, it's the part that then brings us into thriving. Okay, so Mary was taking a lot of medications at that time for depression, for pain, a lot of pain medications. She had also had breast cancer, and she had blood pressure issues, etc., etc. So a lot of the medications were there to damn down the symptoms, which at the time she needed. But what we needed was to raise this up. And we did that besides being seen. And it's really important to be heard and seen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That brings that up, this part up. And I'm sorry, I'm having issues with the camera.
Okay, no worries.
Yes. So I was looking at what was burdening her life force: her diet, her medication, her lack of connection, right? So started to make dietary changes, really focusing on foods like ginger and turmeric that are natural anti-inflammatories, right? I did not tell her to stop her medications. People know when they are strong enough, you strengthen them enough, they know when it's time to stop, to get off of the medications. So within a week, she already was needing less pain medications. Within 2 months, she was not on any pain medications, and a repeat MRI of her jaw when she went to the specialist. She went out of state to follow through this unusual disease of osteonecrosis on the jaw, and the MRI was normal.
Wow.
So into the lockdown, she really was ready to start weaning off of Effexor, which is an antidepressant that she had taken for 20 years or so after one of her, traumas of loss. And she was strong enough to say, I'm really ready to start feeling my feelings again, because the medication, which had been very helpful to her,
Right.
was numbing her from her feelings,
Right.
disconnecting her from our feelings. And we need to be connected with these energy and motion.
Right.
Now that things were starting to move forward, then she could handle them. I must also say that I recommended vitamin D, which I call, that's more here, vitamin D, vitamin C, the vitamins, turmeric, etc. Also some of the medications she was taking, like statins, which leach out CoQ10, that when something natural like CoQ10 that makes the heart function optimally is leached by medication, well, you better replace it, right? In addition, I created remedies, homeopathic remedies for her, and this is custom made, specifically designed and intended to help this piece, to support her emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And so along with that, using energy psychology techniques like visualization and breathing and Psyche, which Psyche is a energy psychology tool that brings the subconscious up to the consciousness, because in our subconscious there lie the messages that we've been suppressing all these years that got stuck
Right.
from our past traumas. So bringing those up lovingly with great compassion and tenderness into the consciousness, then we can align it with the superconscious. So that all of those have really helped Mary handle the lockdown quite well. And also, being a physician, understanding the subtleties of withdrawing from a medication like Effexor, because if you just stop the medication thoughtlessly, you could run into a lot of problems. So,
Right.
by the way, included in her homeopathic remedies, I also offered her the support to come off, specifically off of Effexor,
Right.
as I also helped support her heal from the various traumas of loss through
Right.
the years. So as I was going to say also, as a physician then, I was able to reduce the dose of Effexor ever so slightly, and we're on our last leg now off of Effexor. And I must say that I am so proud and amazed by the way she has handled the lockdown. She is not fearful. And living in Florida at that time alone, whenever we would connect, she would say, "Well, now I'm in Jamaica," and and she would, she used her creativity to enjoy herself. So she says, "This week I'm in Jamaica," and she would see pictures of Jamaica and dress up like she was in Jamaica, all in her own home.
Right.
What creativity and expression of self can really do to raise this. And so as as Mary was empowered, of course this is less and less needed, right?
Right.
And that's where thriving comes, Sarah, right? That's when we are so strengthened body, mind, and spirit, and have the ability to really celebrate our choices.
Yeah.
Health is all about choices. Then we can thrive.
Right.
And also works from the physician's point of view or the practitioner's point of view. You know, if you only have a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail, including the screws, right?
Yeah.
But if you have many tools in your toolbox and you see the person as a whole in the context and focusing on this ground up, then we can choose the tools and use them appropriately and much more respectful of what is emerging in that butterfly.
You're actually, I think the whole idea is giving the person their power back. Is
For sure.
right. So they become powerful in their creation. And that is the gift, right? Because I think up until, as we're growing up in things, we're always giving our power away to the outside, our external factors, our external circumstances and things that are going on. So here we are bringing that back in to give that power back so that you can live to that full extent of who you are.
It is in there. It is awaiting to emerge. It wants to emerge. But these blocks, these symptoms, these pains, be it physical pain or financial pain or pain in a relationship, those are all symptoms. And it's really important not to squash them down,
right,
but to really connect with them for the gift that they do bring.
Right.
And the energies inside.
Right. So this is where I want to you said something there, these blocks, these symptoms, right? So for people that are watching and those who are watching on replay, if there's something that's not moving for you, and I want to specifically talk about entrepreneurs, as you know, as most of my audience knows, that I really, that's sort of my tribe and who I want to help encourage them and empower them to rise to their levels of optimal beings, right? In their personal life as well as their professional and business life. So I want to talk about this idea of blocks. So we talked about it, like they show up as symptoms. Sometimes it's like, things aren't going well in their business. Sometimes it's losing clients. Sometimes it's not being able to attract the financial gains or revenue, things that are disconnecting. So you would, if somebody came to you as a woman, as an entrepreneur, and started to speak about this, you would look at this like these are blockages that are there that are holding them back from that emergence. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yes, for sure.
So you would be able to guide them through this where these blocks can be released, like bringing them from the subconscious mind to the conscious mind to the release of them so that they could actually connect to that higher super consciousness. Is that sort of the journey?
Yes. And the super conscious is really inside of them. And
right.
As well as outside, right?
Right. But I guess it's that connection, right?
Sure. And these symptoms are actually guideposts for us, be they physical, emotional, financial. They inform us.
Right.
And they invite us to pierce through them by healing them, first acknowledging them,
right,
and healing them. And yes, Nasira, I certainly understand because being in solo private practice since '87, I have noticed that the people and the circumstances that were drawn to me have changed and evolved along with me as I have myself pierced through my own blocks.
Right.
Yes. So it's all really connected.
Right. And I guess that's the other thing, like for everybody, there are blockages and nothing to say that, oh my God, I'm just broken. There's nothing that I can do. It's really, everybody has blockages from whatever past lives, past experiences, these experiences are whatever has happening in our life, trauma, losses. It's about the journey of, like you said, the cocoon and the butterfly. It's that journey of emergence that comes out when you take that conscious effort to want to get to removing those blockages or those symptoms. And I think the work that you do is so profound because you're taking mind, body, spirit, and the whole person as a whole instead of just the symptom, which could be like the jaw pain or whatever is showing up for that person. You're taking it as a whole. So I want to just ask you if you can sort of share with us, like if anybody wanted to contact you or if you had anything that you could offer them that maybe they could get a little experience of what it means to do some of this work with you.
Yes, certainly. Now is a good time to begin. And I have the gifts for you. You can find them on my website, awakenchrysalis.com, which is now on the screen. And if you look into the offerings, the section of offerings, you will find 2 gifts, actually potentially 3. And the first gift is 5 questions for you that will really go deeply into your situation and then move forward. 5 very essential questions.
Okay. And what's the second one?
The second one is the Circle of Wholeness, which is a tool that I have used for years, looking at what's happening in the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, and the intellectual part of us. And after you complete those for yourselves, and you feel still moved, then you can email me, info@awakenchrysalis.com, and request the third gift, which is a recording of the precious 3-fold visualization process that connects with the things that really are burdening you, physical, emotional, spiritual, energetically, and then releasing them through breath and through visualization. And so those 3 gifts can get you on your way.
That's awesome.
Yes, and
it's so generous of you to share that and to be able to give it away so people can start their journey. And so in the next step, I just want to kind of make sure that, if people wanted to get a hold of you or wanted to take this a little bit deeper, how would they get a hold of you?
They can do it through my website, and there are contact us if you really feel called and ready to work on things. On yourself and really rediscover your power within body, mind, and spirit.
And just another, I didn't address this before, but in terms of working with you, is it a process of like 1 session? Is there like 6 or 8? Like, how do you do it so that people get the most out of their time with you?
Yes, well, it really depends upon the situation and how open and ready or desperate you are, or proactive you are. So you can either see me for individual consultations, or we do packages that are customized for you. What I really love, being a family doctor, knowing that a problem, one person in the household's problem is everybody else's problem in the household, because we all share the same energy, including our pets, by the way. Right. And so my greatest joy is when the whole family is on board. And that's the place that I have seen the biggest, most amazing shifts.
So let me elaborate that. Does that mean everybody has to come to these sessions? No.
Nothing is required. It's all simply an invitation. When people are ready, then they come on board.
Right.
Yes, there's no judgment at all total compassion. We have to model the compassion within ourselves.
Right.
That will then naturally draw compassionate energies.
Yep. Absolutely. I completely agree with you on that, because I believe that everything is energy and we attract that frequency depending on which frequency we're operating at, and that's what we're attracting into our field. So I think that's such an important thing to note here when we're taking this journey. You know, it is an energetic journey where you are responsible for your own energy, right? So that's something that that would probably be something you will awaken the awareness of it, of, you know, whatever we're attracting, it's because that's what we're holding. Right. So I just want to tie this up together. This is such an like, I love this conversation. This is really I love talking about it. I love sharing, because I believe it can help people actually begin to see transformation and change their lives, because those that are struggling need some tools, and not everybody wants to go down the medical route. Sometimes it's something that people decide on, right? That they don't want to take certain medications, or they don't want to do whatever that's conventional medicine. And this is a great opportunity to discuss something that is holistic, that, you know, obviously you specialize in, and you do have a medical background, which you can also then help that client see, perhaps with their physical symptoms, where that's coming up from and how they can release it. So I really, I am so glad. I've got Bridget here who's watching. She's saying, you know, celebrate our choices and give people their power back. And this is exactly what you were talking about in terms of the emergence of the self. And so I want to encourage people to obviously get a hold of you, or at least the free gifts that you're offering on your website, so they can start this journey. As we tie this up all together, is there anything you can right now give people, just a little bit of strategy or something that they can do that could help them as we are going through this really, I don't want to say difficult time. It's challenging. It's fascinating, right? As you said, it's fascinating. But can you help those that are watching?
Yes. First of all, I would like to invite you to connect with your breath. It's free, it's accessible, and it's copious. And so ground yourself into breath. Actually, one of the other things tools that I am going to be sharing in Chrysalis is transformational breath, the importance of connecting and grounding ourselves in the breath. And certainly during COVID times, during stressful times, the breath can be your best friend. It's keeping us alive each and every moment. And remember that the power is within you. It is not from a magic bullet that comes from outside. It is within your being. So awaken that, honor it, because it is here to serve you. It is here to be unfurled at this time, in this world, at this time of amazing transformational times in human history.
Thank you so much. I just, before we end, because this brings up another question, when you say, you know, connect with breath, what can you just sort of explain a little bit more? Because sometimes people that are watching may not sort of use those words, meaning how do you actually connect to breath? Are you talking about, you know, meditation? Are you talking about sort of stillness, of just coming to a place of acknowledging breath? What does this mean?
Thank you for that question. Thank you so much. Connecting with our breath is simply allowing yourself to know that your breath is there, to pause and to allow the breath, because, you know, when we're under stress, the breath is oftentimes constricted.
Right.
So simply pausing, breathing deeply, is the most accessible and elegantly simple way of resetting. So let's begin with that. And as we become more conscious, of course, there are many of us and many traditions through the ages who have meditations and all kinds of rituals around the breath. But that is not necessary for everybody. I think that simply by honoring and making time for the breath, making sure that the breath goes all the way, fills your lungs, and so much so that your diaphragm pushes your belly out and you can feel that belly rising with each breath in. That's simply elegant.
That's amazing.
Yes, and more of that is going to come because I'm training in an amazing tool of discipline of transformational breath, which is now in 54 countries. And in my training, I'm already practicing. I still cannot include it in my chrysalis practice, but it is soon coming. But it is amazing what we're finding in the Transformational Breath Foundation community, how within an hour, continents and seas away, how amazingly deep we can get into the bowels, the parts of us that we don't even realize are there, just waiting to be released in a way that does support life.
That's amazing. You know what? I mean, this is, like I said, we can go on forever because this conversation is so deep. And I think it's so, for a lot of people, it's a little bit of a mysterious kind of conversation because now they're awakening to the idea of this interconnectedness and this idea that there's so much that we don't know that exists within us, that the powers within us, that, of course, I'd love to have you back on the show at some point and continue this conversation. Perhaps after you're done your certification in transformational breath, we can continue this conversation and bring this knowledge to the people that really are ready to hear it. So I just want to thank you for your time today. I am so blessed to have met you, and I just want to wish you a happy week.
Thank you. Thank you. And to all our listeners, thank you for your interest, your curiosity, and your openness to your own power within, to your own chrysalis. Blessings to all of you. Blessings.
Thank you so much. So that was this beautiful guest, Melinda. If there's any questions that you have that you want to pose to her, by all means, reach out to her on her website. She'll be able to answer them via email, or you can arrange whatever needs to be arranged. But again, a wealth of knowledge. It's a area of exploration that perhaps now with COVID and we're all sort of at home, something to investigate and see where you stand with this connection to self and who you really are. So I invite you to get a hold of her. If you have any questions for me, you know where I'm at, and always here every single day in the morning at 10 a.m. With my beautiful guests. And if you want to be interviewed on this show, you can reach out to me as well. If you have a gift to share in terms of your genius, I know my audience loves hearing from all different kinds of people doing different things in their life. So I want to wish you a happy, wonderful Monday. Remember to be kind to yourself and to others. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.